Okay, I think we're ready to get going. Thank you everyone for joining. Again, this webinar is how to minimize churn and ensure customer support SLAs using Zaggle's chat bridge to integrate Salesforce with Slack. My name is Andrew Lampett, and I'll be presenting along with Sanjeev Nath, who will do a demo for us. So first, a little bit about Zaggle. The company was founded in 2006. We have hundreds of customers. There you can see a selection of those, and notice we're pleased to have, even though we focus on integration of application and processes and data, we even have some integration focused vendors as customers. So this is really a very specific solution to help align teams, and we have a couple key products for that. One of those is Zaggle Connect, integrating Salesforce and Jira. It's the top-rated product on App Exchange, specifically for integrating Salesforce and Jira. And of course, the focus of today's webinar is ChatBridge for integrating Salesforce and Slack. So the topic is around churn, and clearly it's a serious topic. Just how serious? Well, customer retention is just as critical as customer acquisition. So especially if you're building a subscription-based business, where you have to build the momentum of revenue, you of course need to ensure that you're keeping your customers happy. You're both proving out the value of the product, but of course also the service, the customer service is there in terms of customer success and customer support. And we talk about churn, and we do recognize that's a broad picture, and we also realize we're preaching to the choir. You all are the experts in customer support and dealing with churn. But still, we want to call out that there are a number of factors that are playing into churn. First of all, value. Is the customer feeling they're getting the right value with respect to what they're paying? The product, is it fulfilling what they require? Is it fit with the particular market? Even principles. Is the customer aligned with your company ethos and values as well? And of course, the topic of this webinar is more around service. It's around things like customer onboarding, general satisfaction with the service, getting personalization to the extent that the customer feels is required, and then just overall communication. So how do you overcome churn? Well, first you have to capture information and understand what's going on in terms of capturing system of record responses. So for example, already you can capture probably pretty well what the email traffic is and notes that are being done with the customer. And today we're going to get into capturing that information with respect to Slack as well. And of course, you want to give the best service, show that the customer that you're taking the complaint seriously, you're engaging with the customers quickly and proactively, you're getting feedback, and also ultimately that you're adhering to the SLA. Again, another major theme of this webinar. So what do we mean by adhering to the support SLAs? Well, it's having good communication with the customer while keeping that record of that communication in a system of record. It's also about, having alerts to help you ensure that you're meeting those SLAs, and to provide both internal and customer-facing reports confirming that adherence. ChatBridge works so well that for one customer they called out, you see the quote below, they were able to improve their compliance from 86% to 98% within just a few weeks, thanks to ChatBridge. So before I hand it over to Sanjeev, I want to talk with you about what you're going to see in the demo from two perspectives. One is from the Salesforce side, and the other what you're going to see in Slack. And he'll be toggling back and forth and showing side by side so you can see the interaction and how information is entered on one side and popped up on the other. From Salesforce, that means initiating cases from within Salesforce. So if you're a customer support rep, you want to initiate a case to the product team or the engineering team and do that right within Salesforce. And I'll back up on that comment to say, everything you're going to see, part of the spirit of the Zaggle products are let people work within the applications and tools that they're accustomed to. Don't force the support team or the engineering team to go over and look at Salesforce, for example. So back to that first bullet, initiate the case from Salesforce and have it appear within Slack to the engineer or the product person. If the SLA is close to violation, then that support person should be able to see a flag via Slack, and it's triggered via the ChatBridge API. Now on the Slack side, you want to receive alert within the Slack, within a channel, or it could be directly, and you want to be able to query details surrounding the case. Then you want to be able to respond back to the support agent via a chatter feed. And then ultimately, you want to be able to request performance reports. For example, if you're a manager, you want to check, what has the response times been for a particular account. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Sanjeev for the demo.
Thank you, Andrew, and greetings, everyone. And thank you for joining us today. Andrew, is my screen visible?
Yep, I can see everything great.
Great. Following up on what Andrew has said, ChatBridge provides a number of capabilities that allow support teams in Salesforce to reach their counterparts in product and engineering who are in Slack when rapid turnaround and escalations are needed on customer cases to meet and exceed SLA requirements. Now, on the Slack side, ChatBridge also allows Slack teams to take actions on conversations initiated from Salesforce. These actions may include responding to messages received from Salesforce, viewing details of an object from where the message originated, for example, case, as we will show you, and even update certain information related to these objects directly from Slack. So we will cover these examples in the demo scenarios. Now, I'll start with a case here. So let's say a support agent is looking at a case and they need either some quick information or they need to escalate this to Slack teams for some urgent resolution. We provide quick actions for both Salesforce Classic and for Lightning, as you can see here. And the quick action makes it really convenient for the support agent to initiate a message to Slack channel. So all they have to do, for example, here is to pick a channel. So I'm going to pick support. And they can post a message, of course. So add channel, let's just say for abbreviation, I need help with this, okay? Now, support agent has to do nothing more in terms of posting this, because as part of the message, they can also select summary and details, which can be attached with the message as it's sent to Slack. And then, of course, we also give you the ability through this quick action to to provide some attachments that may be relevant, or add additional case fields that may not be part of pre-configured summary and detail that would be relevant to be shared with Slack teams for this particular message, right? But here, as you can see, all I have to do is to say, channel, I need help with this, and I click on share. Now, this message, as Andrew had pointed out, is part of this case feed now. That's one important thing here is that, rather than going to Slack channels and asking for messages and coming back into the case, the support agent stays within the context of the case. And any conversation, any threads that are part of that case are there as part of this record, so that next time around when someone's working on the case, they can also see what exchanges have already occurred with engineering. Now let's look at this Slack side. You can see the message that just came through. So, add channel, I need help with this. This is all as a support agent I needed to do to initiate this message. And you see how case summary is also automatically included here. Not only that, as I showed you here, we had also selected details. So you have an option of sharing either or both. meaning that, maybe summary is relevant for someone, but if it, a lot of times engineering team may actually want some additional information. And this really is important because it reduces a lot of back and forth. I mean, if you just, copied and pasted some information to Slack, that they may have more questions about something, about a case, for example. And so rather than, spending a lot of time in that back and forth, you can template the details. So this actually corresponds to a particular page layout that is specifically created for case to be shared with Slack users. So what we allow you in ChatBridge is to create a custom record type and associate a page layout with this that you could use for sharing, because they may not necessarily need to share, or have access to all of the details associated with a case. And also, I will point out that it's not just case. You can add, these quick actions to any Salesforce object that is feed enabled. And ChatBridge supports integration between Salesforce objects, including custom objects, and Slack. So here, back to this, as you see, I mean, all I've done is to say, hey, I need help with this. What this is automatically shared here, and additional details made available here, okay? So that's a start. Now, as we also talk about the fact that you can have bi-directional exchange. So if I want to reply to this message, I can just say, got it, working on it. So basically from Slack, messages can be sent back and they become part of that same feed item, part of the same thread within Salesforce. You can also, optionally include attachments and stuff, and they will become part of, they will be sent to the case as well. So here, for example, if I go back to look at the case feed, you will see this is a message that I had sent to Slack, and here's a message that exchange that I received back, okay? So this will continue on because Slack supports threading, and so we can have additional conversation related to this. And it will be part of the Slack thread here, and it will be part of the chatter feed exchange here. So that's the first use case. Here, again, repeating this, this is a simple scenario of a support agent requesting some additional information. Now, that's very relevant in many scenarios where a customer is just requesting some information. So not every case that comes in has to be logged into Jira, which is where our Zagile Connect product is used for engineering to formally take up and fix bug or investigate the problem. This is more if they really just need quick help and they can initiate a message. Now they can also, as I already did here, at channel, they can mention specific users if they need help from someone. So all of those things are possible here. And also for escalation. So if they really need it, if there's a customer that's waiting and someone hasn't responded, it's possible for them to, explicitly escalate that from within Chatter. Now let's go to the second scenario. The second scenario is where we also allow you to automate some of this exchange. And so through ChatBridge API, there are a number of ways you can do that, or a number of places where you might do that. But we have a couple of simple examples to show you that. So for example, if I change the case assignment, if I pick a different owner, so let's say I go to admin user, and the case is now assigned to admin user. So you'll see, the case updated happening here. But you will also see that there are two messages that are sent. One message to the support channel, because we've configured it that way, and one message to me through the ChatBridge Slack app that's telling me that I'm assigned this case, okay? Now, as I get this message from Salesforce, now this has happened automatically just as part of the case owner assignment. I get this message, so it immediately tells me that, the owner assignment has changed and I'm the owner now. And some summary information is shared here. Of course, that's up to you in terms of what you want to configure to share as part of these messages. But we have chosen to share case summary. So I can take a look at this, and I now have access to some actions I can take. So from within Slack. So for example, I can post a message. I can say, for instance, I might want to say, I acknowledge this, and I'm investigating. So whatever that might be, the bottom line is that a message is sent from case automatically, and you will see that as part of the case feed, and the message from Slack is posted back to that feed. So here's the message from Slack, okay? So that's one action we can take. There's others also that we allow you, as I mentioned earlier. So besides sending a message, I can also look at the details. So if I'm a case owner assigned to this case, I might want to take a look at the details, and it'll be pretty much the same thing that you had seen earlier, where the structured layout of the case will be presented to me in detail form. So now I can look at the rest of it. And again, the important thing is that I'm doing all of this without having to go into Salesforce, okay? So I have access to all of that, and it's not just me, of course. This is available to any Slack user to whom the message is sent, or who is part of a particular channel where the message was posted. And of course, the last action that I will also show you is where you can actually edit a case from within Slack. Now, this is all configurable, which means that you can select fields that should be editable from Slack, because of course, this is not quite the same as someone logging into Salesforce and going into the case page. So there may be some scenarios where some level of information is relevant that could be updated from within within Slack. So for example, it could be case type or priority or status. And before I do any updates, I'll also talk about the third scenario that we want to demonstrate here in terms of automating escalations. So what we've done here is we have created, just for simplicity, we have created a couple of entitlement processes and a couple of milestones associated with them. So the idea is that if a case priority is changed to high, then based on how the case is aging, if any of the milestones are overdue, it will get flagged, and appropriate messages will be sent to a Slack channel, which we have created called escalations. So, anytime a case is escalated, so the idea here is, as Andrew had pointed out earlier, for cases that are escalating, I mean, when you are challenged with trying to meet or exceed SLA compliance, that's where it becomes very, very relevant, where cases that are violating SLA or getting close to SLA violations, you want to raise them within Slack channels, and you want to appropriately escalate to specific individuals to make sure that they're able to be responsive. So in that scenario, then a message will get sent to an escalation channel here, as we have configured, and appropriate people will be raised in that channel. So what I'm going to make this demo a little bit more interesting by actually changing the case priority from within Slack. So if I change the case priority here, I'm updating the case record, as you can see. And because it's associated with a specific entitlement, then you will start to see, for example, here, first response is already violated or overdue, 14 hours and 28 minutes. So we are beyond SLA violation. You will also see, for example, There's a little bit of a potential delay here.
Should I ask you a question I'm getting from the audience, Sanjeev, or do you want to keep going?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the question here is, I see how an engineer is responding in Slack. Can Slack users initiate messages to support to Salesforce?
Actually, yes. So that's a good question, because what we had shown earlier was, how from Salesforce messages are initiated to Slack, and then from Slack teams can respond to those messages. But of course, it's also possible that someone in Slack wants to actually initiate a conversation. And so that can also be done to a case or account or opportunity or any object. So yes. And yeah, there was a slight lag here, but you can see as I had changed the priority on the case and it got into escalation status. So here's a message in escalation channel from that case that shows me, the different milestones that are overdue now, and some summary information about the case. So this is, again, another example of this automation. And we have customers that have actually implemented similar automations that we're just showing the demo or showing simple examples of what has been implemented out there. But again, the whole idea being that, a lot of this can be automated so that in Slack, teams are alerted sufficiently, and they're able to respond quickly to SLA requirements. And so we have the same ability here that you've seen earlier, where messages where I can respond to this particular message, I can view details or edit it, and so on. And then finally, I think the other thing Andrew had mentioned is reporting. So that's just an example of how you can access information from Slack, from Salesforce in Slack. So what you've seen through these actions is a number of things, right? One, we can send message, we can view details, which is another example of accessing Salesforce records. So when I said view details, I get full case page details available to me. So the same can be applied to other objects as well. If I want to look at an opportunity or an account information, I can request those from within Slack. And the other important thing is that Slack users do not need Salesforce licenses in order to do that. So the last one, that as part of the demo that Andrew had pointed out, we will show you in this example. And here what I haven't shown is that we give you a bunch of Slack actions to initiate messages and to request information about Salesforce objects. So here I'm just gonna request a report, Salesforce report, or a set of reports that match this keyword milestones. So we happen to actually have one that we created for this purpose called New Cases with Milestones Report. So I can request it. And now the report will be retrieved and available to me in PDF form right here. So here, this is again an example of how you can access performance reports from Slack or from Salesforce within Slack on a regular basis, so that you can take a look and see what's happening with specific accounts and SLA metrics, for example. So I think on that note, Andrew, I will turn it back to you.
Great. Thank you, Sanjeev. Let's see, I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. And you can see my slides, Sanjeev?
Yep.
Okay, great. So we can conclude, and we'll have time for a little bit of Q&A. We have questions actually trickling in here. But in conclusion, you saw how ChatBridge helps to align the customer support with the product teams to guarantee SLA adherence. And we saw in particular the bi-directional flow of information between Slack and Salesforce. We saw alert notifications so that you could react appropriately to the thresholds of SLA. And then we saw how you could monitor the SLA and getting reports. I'd like to also call out that we have additional upcoming webinars for ChatBridge: monitor support effectiveness, increase efficiencies of your teams, how to increase sales, and how to engage your community. So let's open it up to questions. The next one coming in, it says, do Slack users need Salesforce licenses? Sanjeev.
Yeah, good question. I covered that earlier, but I'll emphasize that Slack users do not need to have licenses in Salesforce to perform actions. The way it works is that from Slack, a single Salesforce account is used to authenticate, and all actions and all transactions performed from Slack to Salesforce use that account. However, having said that, what we also allow you to do in ChatBridge is to map Slack users with specific Salesforce profiles. And this is important because the big concern would be, can any Slack user do anything in Salesforce or access any information? And the answer is no. It's up to you to determine which Slack users may have what access within Salesforce. So you can map Slack users to profiles in Salesforce, but they do not need to have Salesforce licenses in order to access information or in order to post messages or request data.
Great. Now, can you, the next one is it possible to configure permissions for Slack users in Salesforce to control access?
Yes, and so we, as I said, we allow you to map profiles, so you can either create custom profiles just for Slack users or use existing profiles. And then for each Slack user who should be able to access something in Salesforce, because we also allow you to create objects from Slack. So you can create a case or a lead or an opportunity from within Slack. And so any of these permissions will have to be defined specifically within the profiles that are associated for those Slack users.
Next one is, can you customize what is shared in the channel?
Yes, and so almost all of the things that we saw in the demo. So for example, the summary fields, the page layout for details, all of that is customizable, as well as, for instance, the update form when I was updating the case. So what fields should be updatable, that is also configurable within ChatBridge.
And finally, can you comment on how long it takes and what the process is for installation?
Yeah, it takes about 30 to 45 minutes to install and configure ChatBridge. It's fairly straightforward. I think the key is to have the decisions around what fields are going to be configured for updates and creates and so on, and what layouts will be used. So assuming all of that is known, then actual installation and getting ChatBridge up and running is fairly quick. It will require admin privileges on both sides. So you need a Salesforce admin and a Slack admin to work on it together, but the actual setup is fairly quick. And the product is fully functional out of the box. So there is no additional implementation needed to achieve any of this.
We have more questions trickling in, but in respect for everyone's time, I'd like to come to conclusion here, but we'll be following up by email with the additional questions. So no worries there. We'll handle those very shortly. So thank you everyone for your time. And this concludes our webinar.